And welcome back to Exploring and Measuring Gas Properties. This is our third section, and we'll be looking at pressure versus temperature. This one has a bit of a different setup. We're actually using a flask this time that is empty. It's submerged in hot water, so we have a temperature probe. That's the blue screen that you see here, right? And we still have our pressure, but now that's hooked to the pressure sensor in this cap that's in the flask. So now we have the flask and we have our temperature probe. I've already pre-warmed this water, so it's pretty warm, right? It's 81.3 degrees at the moment. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be changing that temperature by lowering it over time. So we're going to make sure that we get some stabilized data points. And how we're going to lower the temperature is with this great, nice bag of ice that I brought from home. So we're just going to add some ice. Just a few at a time, okay? As you can see, our pressure is changing and our temperature is decreasing. I'm going to swirl that ice around just a little bit just to get it to melt completely. Before we add more ice. Okay. So that ice is completely melted. My temperature probe is kind of in the middle area of where the flask is sitting. And now we have our new pressure and temperature. The temperature is holding pretty constant right there. Okay. So then we're going to add some more ice. Okay. Again, we're going to let that ice melt. And as that ice melts, obviously the heat transfer is going from the hot water, exciting those particles of the ice until they are overcome their stickiness and they separate out and they become the liquid state. A little shake in there, waiting for that ice to melt. It's a very exciting video this time. If you want to speed up this part, you totally can. There's still two little ice cubes, not knowing really what to do. Give them a little stir. Okay, now that my ice is melted, we should be getting a more consistent temperature there. Okay, and a new pressure. So now we are going to add more ice. So that might take a little minute for this ice to melt. in our next reading, what we're going to do is we're going to pour out some of this water. All right, it's starting to get close to overflowing, and we're just going to make an ice bath. So we can get some really cold water. And then we're going to do another reading where we make it below freezing by using rock salt to depress the freezing point of water. Okay, so one more little cube to go, and we'll have this reading. Stir it up a little bit. All right. So now that all that ice has been melted, we now can have a consistent temperature followed by a consistent pressure. Okay. So I'm going to take both of these out for just a moment so that I can pour out some of this water. So that we made a nice, mostly ice bath here, right? So we have our ice and our water back here. We can then not think that through. Making a bit of an icy mess here. Okay. So now that we can have our flask and our ice bath, put our temperature probe in there. This will also take a minute for it to come to thermal equilibrium. So waiting for that temperature right here to be consistent. So it seems to be wanting to stay right at that 0.2, 0.3 mark. Remember the significance of that when it jumps in between. Is some estimation between those values. And so we're going to say that that's our consistent temperature and pressure of our ice bath. We are now going to depress the temperature of that ice bath. So we're going to be adding some ice cream salt, which is rock salt, to our icy mixture. You will no longer see me put my hand in this mixture, because once we add the salt to this ice bath, it's going to depress the freezing point. Let that salt dissolve, and then I'm going to add a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to watch this temperature also get suppressed. And so now I'm going to add my temperature probe back in here. Just give it a little bit of a stir. Keep it consistently determining what that temperature is going to be. Okay. So now we'll wait, now that I've stirred it up, for that temperature to come to equilibrium again. As you can see, now we have a negative number in our degrees Celsius. So we've depressed the freezing point by adding that salt. And we'll talk in a later unit about why and how that happens. But for the time being, just know that we can make that temperature less than 0. And have the same, with a different pressure right there. So that's our third and final video version. You will now do a simulation for our last comparison of volume and temperature.